Well, hello, friends. Thank you for joining us for this T101 panel discussion. We actually have four upper year students with us, and as some of you are trickling into this over the next moment or so, we welcome you here. Thanks for taking some time to join us here. And whether you're joining us live or whether you're watching this on demand, we are grateful for many of you who are in the next few weeks are going to be finishing high school. I don't know what it's been like for you. For some of you, the last couple of years have probably been a little bit chaotic. For some of you, you've been trying to figure out what does this mean? And as you are looking forward to finishing off high school and moving into this next chapter, I know that some of you are probably feeling excited. Some of you might be a little bit anxious. Some of you might not be exactly sure what you're walking into, and that's okay. And that's what we're here for today. My name is Alvin. I work at the Canadian Baptist of Ontario, Quebec, and we are excited to be hosting this panel discussion with four other campus groups who have different campus ministries across some universities across Ontario. And so in a moment, we're going to introduce our four panelists to you. But what we want to do is just give you a quick little intro of what exactly is T101 in the first place. T101 is actually collaborative based with four different organizations, and I'll introduce them in a moment. But one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to provide a space for high school students like you to be able to step into your next faith community. And some of you may be staying at home and going to school nearby. Maybe some of you are actually moving. It could be across the province, maybe even across the country or even internationally. And so as you take those steps, we want to help make sure that you find a place where you can continue on in your faith journey. And so specifically in this instance, our collaboration has been working on different schools in Ontario. And so we'll tell you a little bit more later about what does it mean that you can connect to some of these campus groups. But first of all, let me introduce to you our panelists. So we have four panelists with us today. We have Callum, we have Tabea, we have Talia, and we have Ubi. And so I'm going to get each of them to just introduce themselves real quick here.
Hey everyone, so my name is Callum. I'm a first-year student at McMaster University. I'm studying political science and economics. And a little bit about myself, I love the Toronto Maple Leafs, I love coffee, and I'm also a huge volleyball fan. So I love playing sports in my free time. But yeah, I'm a McMaster student, and I'm happy to be here today.
Hi everyone, I'm Tabea. I'm a second year at the University of Ottawa and I'm studying conflict studies in human rights. I'm originally from Montreal and I'm currently working as a page at the House of Commons. Some things I like to do in my free time are reading, going on bike rides, hanging out with my friends. And yeah, I'm really excited to be joining this conversation today.
Hi everyone, I'm Talia. I'm in my second year at the University of Ottawa. I'm studying French and linguistics. I am originally from Fredericton, New Brunswick, and in my free time I really like to play sports. I play hockey and ringette and skating and skiing. I like that as well. I also love music and singing in choir and spending time with my friends and being outside. And yeah, I'm also very excited and happy to be here today.
Hello, my name is Yubi. I'm a third-year student at the University of Waterloo. I'm in civil engineering. A little bit about me is I was born in Newfoundland, so I'm from Newfoundland, and I recently moved to New Brunswick. And I like to play basketball and also do some reading and hanging out with people. And I'm excited to be here too.
Well, thank you everyone for sharing. And in a moment, we're going to get a chance to actually ask some questions. I know that we've got some lined up here, but by all means, for those of you who are on live right now, we would invite you to either throw in your questions in the chat, and we will see those. But also, you'll see in the chat there that there is a link, a web link for you at transition101.ca/panel. And so you can also submit your questions through that as well. And as we go through the next few moments here, hopefully we can get some of your questions into this conversation too. Like I said, one of the key things that we want to do with all this is we want to take an opportunity for you to, maybe you've got some things that you're unsure about. And so definitely we would love for you to bring those questions out, and we will try our best to give you some ideas and some insights on what our four panelists here have experienced over the last couple of years. I wanted to tell you again briefly about our 4 different organizations. The first one is Ambassador for Christ of Canada. They've actually been around now for at least 45 years and have several different campus ministries that they have available. While they are primarily working with people of Asian descent, really at the end of the day, one of the key things is that they're trying to help understand what does it mean to, given that cultural background and that heritage background, what does it mean to walk in faith? And so while they do have different ministries that are both Mandarin and Cantonese speaking, they also have English speaking ministries as well. And so that's one organization that we've been partnering here. The second one is InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And so they actually have a variety of different things that they get involved in. They've recently been restarting their high school ministries, particularly in the Greater Toronto area. They also have several different camps like Pioneer Camps or Square Ranch. Some of you might be familiar with those, but they also have many different campus groups that some of our people here have been part of as well. And so perhaps some of our panelists will tell you a little bit more about InterVarsity in a moment. We also have the Navigators. The Navigators are a group that is really focused on one-on-one discipleship. And so right now there's about 2 or 3 campuses that they're involved in. And so if you're interested in that kind of setting, then we would love for you to get connected with them. And finally, we have Power to Change. They have been a group that's been around through the States and internationally for over 60 years. And so their main focus is how do you take the next step? They actually have a ministry specifically for high school grads. It's called Next Steps that you might want to check out. And they have a lot of resources in that area as well. All right, so I've done all that stuff. I've talked through all that. And by the way, one of the things I wanted to remind you of is that for those of you who are attending live right now, you may be eligible to win a $50 Amazon gift card. And the way that you can do that is just make sure you throw in a question, or even if you want to just throw in a quick, hey, I'm here, into the chat here, or through that web link at transition101.ca/panel. We would love to see if we can give that gift card away at the end of this time. So on that note, one of the things I want to ask each of our 4 panelists right off the bat is this. As you have been experiencing, for some of you, it's been, I know Ubi, you said this is your 3rd year, so maybe this feels a little bit more distant, but just curious, as you were going through this time, about 3 months before school ends, what's a word describing how you felt at that moment? I don't know if you remember that, but would love for all of you just jump on and share what's a word that would describe how you felt in this time, just as you were about to finish high school and go to your respective universities.
I can jump in on this one. I think right off the bat, I had kind of a bit of a different journey to university because I went through the CEGEP system in Quebec. But finishing off high school for me, I think the main word I would use to describe how I was feeling is nostalgic, I guess, because you're looking back at all these years with the same people, and you're thinking, oh, life is never going to be the same. Like, I'm never going to be surrounded by these same people. I'm never going to have the same. I played volleyball in high school. I'm never going to be on this team again. I'm never going to go on another grad trip to a fun city, or I'm never going to see these teachers again. And so I think looking back, that made me kind of like, I guess, nostalgic. So happy and sad, and, just processing everything. And yeah, trying to really look at my high school journey and like take it in for what it was, and appreciate it, and try to remember all the good moments and all the bad moments, and all the growth that happened during that time. So yeah, I would say nostalgic for me was a big one.
Yeah, and I can go next, I guess. What I would say was, well, I graduated from high school in 2020. So this time for me, like March, end of high school, was the very beginning of the pandemic. And so I would say a word that sticks out for me, which is definitely still relevant even when you're not in the middle of a pandemic, it would be uncertainty or uncertain. I think that is a word that everybody can definitely relate to, especially over the past couple of years. But I think that it is important to remember that even during uncertain times, there are always things that are certain. And so kind of through the end of high school saying like, okay, these are the things in my life that I can keep the same, like this is what's not going to change. And so finding comfort and strength through the things that you know that are always the same, I think that helps with the uncertainty for sure. And also just remembering that everybody else is just as uncertain as you are, so it's not just you.
Mm.
I think for me, the one word describe how I felt before I went to university would definitely be excited. So I'm from Newfoundland, so I went all the way to Ontario. So I was going for adventure to meet people, and it was really good. So I was really excited before I came to university. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt.
I feel like a lot of the points have been covered already. Kind of got a lot of different viewpoints, excited, a little uncertain, anxious, and nostalgic. I think for me, I would definitely say done. I don't know. High school, I also graduated 2020, so right when the pandemic had just hit. And high school was really fun. I super loved it. I could totally relate with the nostalgia. But I think I was ready to move on, and there's definitely like a little bit of uncertainty and excitement there. But I was pretty well set to move into the next step of life. And I could definitely say I was done with high school and ready to kind of take my own independence into my hands and kind of figure out where I stood and where I was going. And there's a lot of things that went with that, but yeah, I would definitely say done. I was done with high school and ready to move on.
So Callum, actually, let's hold there with you for a moment there. You were mentioning how, you're done. And so in that sense of, as you're kind of moving towards the finish line there, how do you finish well? Like, what does it mean to finish well in high school right now?
Totally. That's a good question because I mean, in anything, especially when you've been at something for a long time and you kind of see the finish line, it gets sometimes more difficult to finish well, as you said. And if you've ever done a race or something, it becomes important in the last leg of the race to actually run your fastest. That's what all the coaches say. I did some track in high school, and that was one of the important things was in the longer races. In that last 100, 200 meters, to put everything you've got and keep going. And it can be really hard to do that. I found it was really hard to do that. I definitely slacked off in the last few months of high school. I don't recommend that. And I think it's really important to see all the work you've put in, to recognize how you've gotten to where you are, and to continue going, to really take those extra steps, keep pushing, and really focus in those last few months. It can be really hard. We call that senioritis, and it's a hard thing to live through. But as you're finishing anything, you want to finish well. And I really recommend just putting all you have into it, staying focused, staying on top of things, and really just crunching down when you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are some great reminders there. And actually, today I wanted to go to you for a second because, like you said, you had that experience of CEGEP as well. And so, what was that like then to kind of go from high school, then moving to CEGEP, and then towards for you Ottawa later?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a period of time, like I guess it would be a span of like 3.5 years where I was at 3 different schools. And so yeah, definitely a lot of change. I think that my time at CEGEP gave me a really good transition period into kind of what university life looked like, a bit more in terms of the academics, in terms of the larger class sizes even. And so that was a really cool transition period, but I know not everyone goes through that, especially in Ontario. Yeah, I think I can definitely relate to what Callum was saying about feeling done at the end of high school. And I would add, like, in terms of finishing well, like it's important, to like keep pushing yourself to do well academically, but also just to, like I was kind of saying earlier, to like appreciate the moment you're in and try to take it in for what it is, because you're not ever going to be graduating again. You're graduating high school again. You're never going to be in that same place, and like just taking the time to really, like, if there was a teacher you really appreciated over the course of your years in high school, like really maybe vocalizing that and telling them how much like their support has meant to you over the years. Or just like if you're not going to the same school as a friend you think you might not be in close touch with, if you don't reach out and be intentional about that, then maybe reach out and try to build those friendships so that you're really taking in high school for what it is, and then also looking to the future and seeing how you can build on your relationships.
Great. And speaking of relationships, I mean, Ubi, let me go to you for a minute there. Especially since you were going interprovincially in your move, uh, who are some of the either groups of people or maybe like whether it was people within your own church, other networks within your own family, who are some of those people that helped you prepare well moving to, especially since you were moving to Ontario later?
Okay. I think some people that helped me prepare well would probably be my youth pastor. She was really good at connecting us with other youth groups in the city. We have lots of get-togethers. So in that, we would meet new people a lot, and you'd get really good at just having conversation, maybe getting people's phone numbers, and just connecting with people because that's everyone's kind of in the same boat. I think someone said that before about how you're all plopped down in this new place and you don't really know anyone. Maybe some people know some people, but I mean, you're just there and you're gonna make friends. You can make friends, and yeah, I was just my youth pastor really helped me get good at connecting with people.
Hmm.
Besides that, yeah, I think in school there's a lot of opportunity for me. I played basketball, so then I traveled around the province a lot, and got to meet a lot of new people that way, and just learn yeah, how to get along with others. And yeah, those are some of the ways I learned how to connect. Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear, right? As you were talking about, uh, at least I think what I heard from what you just shared there is that there is a sense of how to step out and to meet people, that especially if you're in a different place and you really don't know anyone. And I know that we didn't necessarily play on this, but I mean, from what I understood from Talia and Tabea, both of you, I don't think you knew each other beforehand. And I think even as we were talking beforehand a little while ago, you had shared about the story of how I think it was interesting how you each shared the story of how you both met. And I'm curious if you would help to kind of recount what was that like?
I can kind of start us off maybe, and then Talia can
Okay,
kind
I'll
of
jump
jump in
in.
when she emerges in this story. So I was walking. So at the beginning of the semester, the beginning of my first year, which is actually my second year because of my CEGEP credits, I was with, I think, two other girls that I'd kind of met. One was my roommate, one was a girl I'd met through work. And we were on our way to check out new churches in the city. So we were on our way, we're walking along this street near our residence. We're on our way to this church. And we're talking about how we're going to get there, what bus we're going to take. And all of a sudden, this girl walking in front of us like turns around, and that was
Yeah, so I
Talia.
was eavesdropping
Yes.
on their conversation, like totally, completely. And I was like, oh, like, wait a minute, I think we're going to the same spot. And so I turned around and I said, oh, like, is this where you guys are going? And they're like, yeah, like, and so it turned out we were actually on our way to the same bus stop to then go to the same church. And then, yeah,
And the rest is
the
history.
rest is
Yeah.
history.
And so I know for some people, right now they're feeling if they're going to a place where they don't know anyone, right? Maybe they don't really have a group of friends. Let me jump back to you for a moment. How what is it like then to almost get yourself in that mindset to be able, especially if someone is not necessarily used to stepping into those spaces on their own? What are some ways that they can prepare, or at least even even I guess maybe that's the best way of putting it, right? What ways that they can prepare kind of mentally and maybe even spiritually to step in those spaces like that?
Yeah, I would say on that one, like, anyway, I definitely am a fairly like social person and I really like being around people. And so something I was really worried about moving, of course, from New Brunswick to Ontario was that I didn't really know anybody. And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna have no friends, like nobody's gonna like me. I'm gonna be so lonely. And yeah. And then I think the best, which obviously wasn't the case. I met a lot of awesome people, Tibet included, but I think something that I had to remember was that like it's not like I'm not the only person who is like who doesn't know anybody or is trying to make friends. Like no, sure there are a couple of people who maybe are from the city and know a couple of other friends, but like grand scheme of things, nobody knows anybody. Like everybody is just as desperate to make connections and meet new people as you are. And the other thing that I really liked, so I'm from Fredericton and it's pretty small, and Ottawa is obviously quite a lot bigger. And so that was definitely took some getting used to, but also on the plus side, it helped me like worry less, I guess, about like meeting people because there just are so many. So if you meet somebody and I don't know, you're worried that you're gonna say something and then they won't like you, well, you probably won't. Like they probably will like you, but if they don't, it's fine because you're gonna probably meet 20 other people the next day. So I think to just yeah, and there are always people that you will like click with and get along with really really well, and so to not like if you don't meet like your very very best friend on in the first hour that you spend in that city, that doesn't mean that you're not going to, and so I think that was important too.
Okay. No, I think that's a great helpful reminder, right? That really, like you said, almost everyone's in the same boat, and everyone's having that similar kind of experience, and to recognize that as well. That's great. And let me just shift gears a little bit here. I know some of you are obviously you're all in different kinds of programs. Let me throw to you, Callum. Let me throw this one to you. We always hear about how high school and university workloads are different, and in some ways, maybe if sometimes there's almost that maybe we hear about those myths and legends about just how much homework there really is in university. Tell us a little bit about what did you experience, especially with your program in terms of that workload between high school and university.
Yeah, so it's definitely different. And I think so. This is my first year at university, and it's definitely been different as well because we're just transitioning out of online school and into in-person school. So things have been really crazy because some classes you'll find are all what we call asynchronous, where all the lectures are pre-recorded and you have to find them, fit them into your schedule on your own time. But then you're in person other times, and you're in classes and tutorials in person, and then those ones you need to be there on time, all whenever it has to be. And it's been definitely a big shift because of that. But in general, I would definitely say university is more work, but maybe it's exaggerated in some of the ways that it was presented in high school. I remember being in high school, and it was my physics class, and one of my teacher was kind of berating one of my friends because he never did his homework. He was like, you know what, you're gonna flunk out of university if you do that. It was kind of good fun, but also I feel like that kind of thought circulates a lot in high school. And don't get me wrong, university is a lot of work. But the biggest thing I think is that when you're in university, you're on your own. There's no teacher that's telling you got to do your homework, you got to hand this in now. If you don't hand it in, you just don't hand it in. So what becomes the most important thing in university is becoming an independent learner. Is recognizing when you need to spend time on things, which things you need to spend time on, how much time you need to spend on things. And that kind of comes naturally, I think. My first semester, which was last semester, I definitely struggled a little bit with that. But the more you do it, the more you recognize, like, hey, like for this test, I really don't feel like I don't know this stuff. I just spent this much time studying it. I need to work on these papers for this long. And you kind of fall into a rhythm of understanding yourself and understanding how you learn and how you think. And that becomes the most important thing is just organizing yourself and being more independent learning, taking more initiative, which is good for learning and is a good skill just in life in general. So I think it's definitely harder, but it's a different kind of learning. It's less from the teacher. It's a little bit more self-learning with friends. I love learning with friends. It helps me a lot. So I spend a lot of my time in the libraries on campus with people in my courses, just like practicing or quizzing each other or whatever. But yeah, it's different. But as you kind of fall into the rhythm of it, it's I think a lot more fun and is helpful in other areas of life as well. So
cool. Actually, Ubi, I wouldn't mind going to you on this one, just because sometimes we hear about engineering, right? We hear about what some engineering students go through. So, especially for some people who have heard about those kinds of stories, what was your experience like in terms of going from what you experienced in high school versus the kinds of workload you would face at Waterloo?
Yeah, so I'm in civil engineering, so I am in the engineering world. When I first went to university, I feel like it was there's a big transition like Alan was saying, there's like a different workload. What am I gonna say? I agree with what Callum was saying about how it's like a different kind of learning and there's a lot of self-learning. In the world of engineering, there's less about writing essays and definitely a lot of problems, practice problems and all of that. I think there are some people I know who would get like a lot of their identity from their marks. And there's this curve where like, oh, I got into engineering, so I had to have this 90% average. And you get your first physics test and you got a 70. And then that can actually really hurt your self-worth. And there has to be the separation of your work and realizing like you're at a certain place and having a goal to get towards that, because it can feel like very steep and you don't want to hurt your mental health and just your own health in that way. In terms of work, there is a lot of work coming at you, to be honest. And I think the best thing to do would actually be to work in groups, which is not something I picked up early. But if you're working in groups, there's a lot you can do. Like if you're not strong in calculus, well, this person is really strong in calculus, but they're not really strong in some kind of physics course, but you are, and you kind of help each other to learn. And you're not copying because like ultimately on the test, it doesn't matter if you're copying because you don't understand the concepts. It's more about this person can kind of break down the concept for you. So I think in that way, you can kind of conquer the workload. Because like what Cam was saying, studying in groups and quizzing people, that's actually very helpful because now it's not just the professor who's kind of talking to you. It's someone who's like on your level, knows the words that you use. They're communicating this complex thing in calculus or whatever course it is right to you. And that can kind of help with the workload because engineering can be very hard, but working in teams or whichever way you find really effective can be very helpful. And I think the other thing is there's this mentality that you have to finish this problem that you're stuck on and just have to finish it right now. But a break goes a long way. So take a break because it can, yeah. So breaks are good. That's all I have to say on that.
Okay. Okay. And that's one of the things that it's been interesting as all of you've been sharing, right? There are different things that you've been learning to prepare you for that. And so Talia, let me jump to you on this one. What were some things, either things that you did as you kind of finished off and prepared for university, or maybe things that you kind of wish that you learned, maybe specific habits or different things that some of our people who might be watching right now can start doing now in order to get ready for university in a few weeks?
Yeah, so I would say, things to get ready. In terms of habits, I think what's important is to like think about them and think about the habits that you would like yourself to have in university. And so sort of like thinking about, okay, like these are the values that are important to me, and these are the habits that I wish I had in order to help me support these values, whatever that may be, in any aspect of your life, I guess. And then what would be important is to sort of start implementing those habits into your routine now, or like before you finish high school even, because I found something that I did was I was like, oh, okay, like once I get to university, like I'm going to do this, and this, like every day, and it's going to be great, and all my habits, like perfect. But in fact, like there's so much changing all the time, like when you're moving away to, or even not moving away, but just the transition, there's a lot of change. And so I think if you can figure out as early as you can, I guess, what some of those habits, even if it's only like one or two, if there's like one thing that's like really important to you and you're like, okay, like I'm gonna make sure I remember to floss my teeth, I don't know. And if that's something that's super duper important to you, maybe you want to make sure you start flossing your teeth before you graduate high school and through the summer especially, to make that be one thing that doesn't have to change when you are going through your transition time. So I guess if your goal is to floss your teeth, then start flossing your teeth now and keep doing it through the summer, and then it'll already be something you're used to and something that doesn't have to change when you go away.
Yeah, no, I like that, right? In terms of having those kinds of consistent, those consistencies, right? Things that likely won't change. That's something that you can lean back on, especially as it seems like everything else has changed. And I like that. Thanks. Callum, let me ask you this. As you've looked back over the last couple of years now, from high school, I know that you had mentioned to me earlier that that you did a gap year away, and also as you've gone into McMaster for your first year. How have you seen your faith evolve through all that?
Yeah, totally. Definitely a big question. And my story is definitely different here because I graduated in 2020. And in that year for 2021 or 2020 to 2021, so last year, last school year, I spent at a Bible school in British Columbia. And that was just kind of, I recognized that my faith is obviously something that's really important to me. And I really wanted to take special time out of what I thought my life was what trajectory my life was going to be, which was just going to be school and then probably work after or whatever. And I thought, a year spent with Jesus and getting to know him better and really making my faith my own would be something good and important. So I spent a year doing that, and I've definitely recognized, I think more and more, how that transition from high school to then Bible school and then university, how important that kind of transition is. Because really at this time, like as you're leaving high school, one of the things that's happening is you're really kind of becoming your own person, I think. Maybe you spend most of your time kind of with your parents doing what your parents want to do, maybe going to church because they go to church, or doing things that kind of just happen naturally in your community. That's kind of what I found I did in high school. And as you kind of become your own person, you become more independent. I have to make those choices yourself, and you, especially in your faith, it really needs to become your own. Like no one's going to tell you to go to church on Sunday, or no one's going to tell you to do your devos, or no one's going to tell you to pray, and all these things that feed your relationship with Christ and help you get to know him more and more. These kinds of things are things that you need to pick up as your own habits. So I really like the fact that Talia mentioned flossing. That's great. But bringing up, I don't know, reading your Bible or things like that, like those are disciplines that I think you can learn as well in high school, and you can pick up doing on your own. And those things become really important when you go to university. And maybe not, most people won't share. If you go to secular university, most people won't share a lot of maybe your opinions or your thoughts. And it becomes important that those things that you've maybe taken from just your community in general become your own. And you really reach out and try and understand what it is that you hold to be true. It's important to like test all these different claims, really wrestle with what's going on in the Bible, and recognize who Jesus is, and that he's the Lord of your life. And recognizing that changes everything. So I think definitely I would say that that's my biggest revelation, I think, from high school and then Bible school and then university now, is just I've really come to recognize that Jesus is Lord over every square inch of my life, and that he has control over all of it, and that I give everything to him. So that's been the biggest thing for me. But really, I think as you're transitioning is recognizing, what do you believe, why do you believe it, and testing all those things. You don't want to be just someone walking around just thinking things for just because you think them. You want to have basis for what you hold to be true. And I think that becomes important when people ask you about it, and it becomes important when people don't agree with you. So.
Okay. Yeah, Tabea, what about you? What was your faith journey like over the last few years, from high school through CEGEP and then now into Ottawa?
Yeah, I think, my faith has definitely grown a lot over the past few years. I would say, over the course of CEGEP, I think is when I really started reading the word every day and making it a really regular habit in my life. And I've definitely seen the fruits of that in my life, in the daily life, in the smallest things and the big things, whether I'm just reading scripture before I get up and do a day of classes, inviting the Holy Spirit to reveal what I should see from the word this morning, inviting the Holy Spirit for opportunities to share the gospel with others in my day, and just sort of starting out my day with that really intentional practice. And I've definitely seen the fruit of that. And I think conversely, I've also seen, when maybe I sleep in and I don't pick up my Bible in the morning, because we all have those days, and seeing how my day is affected by that, and seeing tangibly like, hey, I am really just feeling maybe more anxious today, or I'm not feeling like yeah, I'm not feeling like I'm close with God right now. Like, why is that? Oh, I didn't pick up my Bible. Right. I think a big thing that has been a transition in my faith journey as I've gone to university has been navigating living in community, and also in more ways than one. So I'd say now I have roommates, and roommates not living with your family definitely comes with their own challenges. You have to learn. You have to learn to be gracious. You have to learn to be patient. You have to learn to relate with people that maybe are completely different from you. In my case, I'm not living with Christians right now. And so, yeah, just navigating that and figuring out how you can maintain your friendships while also, navigating personal preferences and things like that. And then, yeah, on the other hand, also finding a Christian community and being able to, pursue deep relationships with others and pursue God's will for yourself personally, and then for your faith group, for your campus, and seeing how that happens. And yeah, just sharpening each other and pursuing each other and praying for each other. And it's been really cool to see how my faith has grown through all of that.
What about you, Talia? What have you noticed in terms of how your faith's been developing over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so sort of, I guess, piggybacking off of what Tibea said, I think something that's been really awesome and helpful and important to me since I've been here in Ottawa is the sort of community aspect of my faith, and just connecting with other like-minded individuals, I guess. I think that was something that I don't know, so grateful for, being able to just have that community and support, and I guess just, yeah, similar values. And also you can learn so much from all everybody has like a different faith background, even if they're similar. Like nobody has exactly like the same experiences growing up. And so I also have found it's been super interesting to hear from a bunch of other people about their faith, and then it brings up questions, and then sometimes little things you'll maybe agree or disagree, and that can shift little aspects of your faith. And so I think that that's been super interesting as well, in sort of how my faith feels like it grows every time that I hear about somebody else's faith, I guess. And so it's interesting hearing that, and then what parts of their faith I think maybe resonate with me more than I thought they would have, and such. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Ubi, I think you're the one who's closest to graduation out of this group right now. So, over the last few years, what have you noticed in terms of how you've seen your faith form over the last bit?
So I'm in third year. So most of my university has been online, like 1.5 years, I think. So I progressively, when I first came into university, that I had a lot of questions about faith and how to make it personal to UB. So I met an upper year at the time, and we talked a lot about faith. It was kind of a discipleship relationship, like I think the group Navigators does, and I think that really helped me. And I'm really into philosophy and ideas and concepts and stuff. So I read a lot of I've read a lot of books to see things like what Augustine has written, and like some older church people, just to know what's happening in Christianity, and what's on the go, and make it so I can understand where it's going. So I guess how it's grown for me is to make it more personal for myself. And then in terms of community, I've really enjoyed growing in community with some other guys around me, and talk about God, and that way make it more personal to me. So it's not just something that was just kind of handed to me, but it's like a gift, and then now I can accept it from God, from Jesus, and that sort of way. So that's kind of how my faith has grown. And what really helped is times where, because of COVID, I was more isolated. So there's more time to read the Bible. And since we have the internet, we can look at what other people have said about it. And if I don't understand a passage, I can look that up. And yeah, I've learned a lot through that. So I agree with Callum that building a habit of just reading the Bible. I actually think everyone said that building a habit reading the Bible, very key, very key. So that's kind of my story.
Okay. And so as we head into our final moment here, we've kind of gone all over the board from some of your experiences of high school, from some of the things that you've been getting used to and readjusting as you were starting off your university careers, and also now just talking about your faith. We're just going to go around the table here, our virtual table here. We'll start with Ubi, and we'll go to Talia, to Bea, and then Callum. What's one word of advice you would offer to those who are watching this right now?
One word of advice. I think one word of advice I would give is in the practical place. Yeah, so in the practical. I think having like some kind of extension cord in your backpack is very key because the chargers, they're not always outlets. It's very key. Having a friend, or even having a friend who has that around. And then more like life wise advice. I think having a lot of patience with others and yourself is very important because it's like that can be applied to school with grades. Maybe you want to perform higher, just have patience. Maybe with others, they're getting on your nerves. But I mean, they could be your friend next like month for some if they need you or if you need them. So having patience. I think those are my pieces of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I kind of like what you did with the one like practical and one life advice. So I would say in terms of something super duper practical, if you are living somewhere in residence and it's pretty tight sometimes, storage is your best friend. Under the bed storage has been great for me this year. I got these little thingies that go and they like raise up my bed so I can keep a whole bunch of stuff underneath. It's really great. 10 out of 10 recommend. In terms of more general advice, I would say, I guess sort of I would echo what I said earlier on like everybody is in the same boat as you, like everything that you're anxious about, like you're not the only one who's having these anxieties, like everybody is nervous and excited and doesn't know exactly what's going on and really wants to make friends. And so I think it's important to remember that you have a lot more in common with all of these new people than you might think. And that can also always be a nice sort of conversation starter too, is you think about one of these things that's maybe something crazy that's going on. Oh my gosh, this class was so confusing. I don't know what's going on. And probably the person you're talking to on your way out the door thought the same thing. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback off the practical and the broader advice. I would say my more practical advice is if you can, like, don't pay full price for your textbooks. Just don't. There are so many used textbooks being sold on like Facebook Marketplace, on like through campus resale, like websites. So like check out those resources. But if you do buy them used, make sure you have an edition that your prof is okay with, because some profs will be like, you know, I need the 10th edition of this textbook, but the 9th is also okay. But like, don't get the 8th. If they say not the 8th, just stick to what the prof says. But I would say, yeah, definitely try to buy your textbooks used. You will save so much money. And then, okay, my more broad information advice would be to always make time for things that you like to do in your days. When you're busy and you're at school, and maybe you're working too, and your life is just consumed by school and work, like often it's hard to distinguish like who you are from what you're doing, and like these things that are beginning to consume you. And so I think like we've talked about already, like spending time in the word, but also like if you have a hobby, if you like, I've been really loving to read this semester. I've been reading so much and it just makes me so happy, and like it just brings me a lot of joy. So I think implementing these things into your life, whether if you play an instrument, play it, like take that 15 minutes, even 20 minutes, like make that time, because these things are important to you. And yeah, so I think that would be my more broad advice.
I will also be doing a practical and life advice. I really like that idea. Practically, get an espresso machine. Coffee will save your life. I really recommend it. It's super good. We don't super condone too much coffee, but it's really important for you. Trust me, it will help you in the late nights, and you're really going to enjoy it. I'm just going to throw that out there. And then in life, I think perseverance is really important. Like you might get a bad midterm back, your first one. Like Hubie was saying about maybe you get your first physics test back, it's really bad. But persevering through that, recognizing that like it's probably just 15% of your mark. I mean, at the end of the day, you can overcome that through working harder later. Let's say you're trying to implement some new habit in your life. Like I picked up going to the gym a lot more while I've been at university, and recognizing that, you know, 1 week, maybe you're trying to go to the gym like 4 or 5 days a week, and you only make it 2 of the days, and recognize that, you know what, it's not the worst thing that you didn't make it those other days, but next week's a new week and you could try it again. And same thing with reading the word or with flossing or whatever you're trying to solidify. I think at university, it's a great time to kind of, like people have been saying, kind of recognize who you are and figure those things out, and just realizing that it's okay to try new things. If they don't work out, they don't work out, and there's so much more out there. There's so many new opportunities, and it is amazing to try them all out. So yeah, just persevere through when things aren't going incredibly, and I recognize that it's not the end of the world, and that everyone else is struggling just along with you. So yeah, and coffee. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Callum, Tabea, Talia, and Ubi for all that you've suggested here, and all the different points of insights and wisdom that you've offered here. Before we finish off, a couple of things just want to let you know about. Some of you might be thinking, okay, well, how do I get connected? And maybe some of you, you can ask, as Ubi was talking before, right? I mean, you might be able to ask your youth pastor, maybe someone that you trust. Maybe you have people who are already in some of these networks that can get you connected into some of these faith communities. But if you don't have that, there's a couple of ways that you might be able to get connected. One is, if you're going to visit these campuses in the next couple of weeks, in the next few weeks, we invite you to go to transition101.ca/go. There is a quick form that you can fill out. And if you tell us when you're going to be visiting, we're actually going to have one of our campus staff or one of their upper year students meet you in person, just to be able to show you around a little bit, just to even answer some of the questions that you might have, similar to what we've been doing today. So that's one option for you to check out there. The other one, if you can't make it to the campus that you're thinking of visiting, is to actually connect digitally. So if you go to transition101.ca/connect, we can actually get you connected to someone at the campus you're going to. So whether it's at Windsor or in Ottawa or Carleton or Western or Lakehead or whatever you're going to, that's one way that we can get you connected as well. And so now we've gone to our final part of our program here, and it's awarding our $50 Amazon gift card. And so whether you want to buy an espresso machine like Callum just mentioned, or maybe you've got some other thoughts for it, the winner of the $50 gift card is Akshat from Toronto. Congratulations for winning that gift card. We will send you those details later. Anyhow, we also have some other resources at transition101.ca that we would love for you to check out there, including some of the pro tips that our 4 panelists here have offered, and some other stuff there for you as well. In the meantime, our next panel discussion will be happening on Sunday, June the 5th, as well as on Monday, August 15th. And all the information, again, is at transition101.ca/panel. In the meantime, as you are finishing off high school well, as you are preparing for what life means after high school, as you are stepping into your next chapter of life, we ask God's blessing on you as you move into that next venture with him. So blessings to you, and thanks for joining us.